mantra is Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. And if these desires are unhealthy, then those desires get granted. Even the unhealthy and the healthy desires. Hey, Utkrish. Hare Krishna. We're happy to be back here, I think. Right. So, are we having a problem? Can I start? Can they hear me? Okay. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishnapastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktitirtha Swaminata Namine Namaste Krishnapadaya Prabhupada Shritatmane Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhaktitirtha Iti Namine Namam Vishnupadaya Krishnapastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminati Namine Namaste Saraswat-devam Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavad Pashyate Desatarine Om Ajnanatimrandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Nityananda Vadutendur Vasudha Prana Vallabha Janava Jivitapati Krishna Prema Prada Prabhu Padmavati Sutta Sriman Sachinandana Purvajaha Bhavonmatta Jagatrata Rakta Gaura Kalevaraham Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Hishikesha Indriyatmane Namah Paramhamsaya Purnaya Nivritatmane Swarga Pavarga Dwaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namah Namah Hiranya Viryaya Chaturhotraya Tantave Hare Krishna. Sorry we are starting a little late. It's actually 2.63, second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, verse 63. Last week we did verse 62. I'm just going to start reading it so that we could get into verse 63. In the beginning of the second chapter, Krishna dissects existence into three parts: spiritual, mental, and he basically divides it into the spiritual, mental, and the physical aspects of existence. He dissects it, and then he starts talking about the objective of the yogis, the objective of one who is supposed to be situated in samadhi. Arjuna raises the question as to what the symptoms are, and Krishna starts answering the questions. And after which he starts talking about how to attain samadhi. What are the symptoms of one who has attained samadhi? How do we attain samadhi? So he starts with someone who is at a preliminary stage and then proceeds one on to higher stages of consciousness. Now, towards the end of the chapter, he is addressing the obstacles on the path of devotional service. He is addressing the obstacles, he is addressing the pitfalls of one who has taken up the path of devotional service. So, one who has taken up the path of devotional service initially steps in with faith, associates with devotees, engages in service, bhajana kriya. By engaging in service, what does he obtain? He obtains experiences, is it not? Because we realize that when we are spoken of and we are told that there is something called spiritual. There are very large doubts, because initially Krishna attacks the intelligence, he attacks the mind, he starts giving us very logical, stepwise conclusions on the existence of the soul. And when we are told that there is a soul within, it's very difficult for us to perceive what is the spiritual happiness. It's very difficult, because one has to be able to realize the soul for them to perceive real spiritual happiness. So in the beginning stages, for us to be able to enhance, tighten and develop our faith, it is required that we experience what is spiritual. But how do you enter into experiences? Krishna consciousness is not about restraining senses 100% and becoming inert. Krishna consciousness realizes the practical difficulty of a conscious being of being inactive. Krishna consciousness says that we don't have a challenge of being inactive. The Siddhanta is, how do you act properly? So engagement of the senses is required in Krishna consciousness. Engagement of the senses allows us to purify our senses and for us to be able to have the so-called spiritual experience. So there is association, and after association there is experience, because you're engaging in service. And what kind of experiences are those? What are spiritual experiences? How do we experience spirituality? How do we perceive the existence of the soul? We perceive the existence of the soul because when we take up service, which does not have any other motivation other than serving, we feel a deep sense of happiness. That happiness is the happiness of the soul engaging in the service of the Lord. Do we understand? There is no other motivation. Now there is a call for service, right? There is a call for service where we are told, come and engage and help us cook a feast. Come and engage and help us set up a certain program. Come and help us engage the distribution of books. The more and more and more we engage in such service with absolutely no sense of what we would be gaining from it, either on the physical or the mental level, we would feel a certain sense of very deep satisfaction. That fulfillment is at the level of the soul. So we experience happiness. We experience happiness in the association of devotees. This kind of activity that we do, we feel that we want to be able to perform it with a certain group of people. That association is special, especially because if you notice and if you reflect on it very carefully, devotee association is very special, Vaishnava association, because these souls under normal circumstances we probably would have had nothing to do with. We don't have much in common, if you realize. Amongst devotees, if you look at the Sangha, we may not have much in common from a mundane perspective. We may speak different languages. We may have certain eating culture. We may have certain other cultures. We may have certain preferences. We may not generally seek out these personalities if we were to meet them under social circumstances and say that, I would want to associate with you and develop a deep relationship. But then we come into devotee Sangha, there's something very special happens because the bond between us is not physical, it's not mental, it has nothing to do with superficial attributes which are normally the norms for classification within the material world. When we come into Sangha, we are connecting at such a deep level because our commonality is the divine couple. Our commonality is Chaitanya Chandra. He is right in the middle. Lord Chaitanya is in the middle, and we are connecting to him, and that connection is being experienced at such a deep level that we develop affinity for each other. That is surprising. What is even more surprising is the deep affinity you can develop amongst different races. You walk into a temple in Africa, you will find blacks, whites, Indians sitting together and honoring prasadam. How is that possible under normal circumstances? Such amity, when there is so much glaring differences in terms of culture, in terms of body, in terms of, habits, so on and so forth, and backgrounds. It is possible because there's so much commonality in Vaishnava Sangha And this is being experienced at the level of the soul. Srila Prabhupada devised us and gave us a program where we are able to cut through all these barriers. If not for that fact, our program would not have been successful across the world. It is successful because we are able to connect at the level of the soul. This solution which has been provided and the experience that are coming in are being provided at the level of the soul. Otherwise, it would not have been happening. It would not have been happening if it was not a solution at a very deep level. Since this involves very deep faith, it involves a very deep level of existence, we were able to connect. This is a spiritual experience. It's not a material experience. This is a spiritual experience. So there are so many experiences that come in because we associate with devotees and serve, and that gives us realizations of the truths that are spoken in the Shastra. When realizations are given, what is realization? A realization is where we read Shastra and we are able to experience Shastra. And we are able to share the experience, we are able to see it's aligned. That's realization. Then we are having realizations, our faith deepens. As our faith deepens, what does it mean? Our faith deepens because we are having some real experiences. We spoke of this a couple of weeks back. And we shared the fact that our faith deepens when one experiences pratyaksha, which is experiences the Lord through his senses. So we are experiencing pleasure. Now when you cultivate eating prasadam, then you reach a point where you do not want to touch anything which has not been offered because you have cultivated a higher taste. Param drishtva nivartate. This is a spiritual experience. Something that is not offered to the Lord is unpalatable. It is not something that I would like to taste because it has no connection to Him. And if it's not connected to Him, what purpose do I have? So Vaishnava theology is based on engagement of senses. And engagement of senses requires association. The first thing that you do when you meet a devotee is you have the opportunity to serve. When you meet a group of devotees, they say, Prabhu, can you lend a hand? That starts your devotional career. Extremely potent to have devotional connections. So now we are looking at certain aspects of it saying that our focus is not to restrain, our focus is to serve. Our focus is to serve. Our focus is to use our senses in the services of Lord Chaitanya. By using our senses in the services of Lord Chaitanya, we experience the mission of Lord Chaitanya, which is the Yoga Dharma. Real chanting is experienced when there is service. And when there is real chanting, there is real service. Both. How we chant is going to result in what kind of service we can perform. At what level we can perform services. How purified our consciousness becomes that we are able to connect to the service at that level. And how well we serve without rejecting the service that is coming to us will reflect on how well we can chant. It's vice versa. Our chanting depends on service, service depends on chanting. And this allows us to deepen our experiences. Our experiences, as they deepen and deepen, we are able to reject lower aspects of existence. Because you're experiencing something higher. Then there is gradual progress and one is able to give up the anarthas. That which has no meaning. That which has no meaning specifically are aspects of our life which are not connected to Krishna, or where we are having great difficulty in connecting to Krishna because it's overtly sinful, or it is something which is a frivolous waste of time that we are not able to connect to Krishna. It's a struggle. Since we have developed a real higher taste, we are able to give it up. And that works wonderfully well. It's going to develop because our chanting also improves as we go along. Initially, there's a struggle in chanting. Right? One is able to appreciate kirtan. We are able to appreciate music because it affects us emotionally. We are able to accept the kirtan part. So the more wonderful a kirtaniya, more the instruments are, more the paraphernalia and so on and so forth, more wonderful it is for us to be able to participate. But when we sit in the morning wanting to chant our rounds, we are struggling. So what does this tell you? It tells us that we have not developed real taste in chanting the names. We are enjoying kirtan because there is some amount of sense gratification involved in hearing good music. Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada, used to purposefully encourage people who cannot sing or who do not sing well to lead kirtan. He used to say, you lead kirtan. And he used to say, if you lead kirtan, people will listen to the holy names. They will not be appreciating your mellow. Right? So now you're forced to go deeper because now you're connecting to the holy names. So this is an experience. So when we start going, what I'm trying to tell you is that there are experiences associated with the chanting of the holy names. Those experiences are amazing. Those experiences have to be experienced, and that requires chanting first of all. If you don't chant, you would not be able to experience the mellow of how the holy names are equal to Krishna. Non-different from Krishna. We cannot experience it unless we chant. But then the chanting itself has to be pure, without which you cannot experience what is Krishna consciousness all about. For that chanting to be pure, one needs to be able to serve well. It is almost like saying, Srimati Radharani, Krishna, engage me in your service. Bestow mercy upon me. And what is mercy in Krishna consciousness? Mercy in Krishna consciousness is not a cliche. It is not a word which is used because it's fashionable. It has become fashionable these days, right? We say, Prabhu, give me mercy. Maharaj, give me mercy. Everybody has to give mercy. What is this mercy which you are asking for? Opportunity. What is this opportunity that we are asking for? Mercy comes in several ways in Krishna consciousness. What is the mercy that we are wanting? We are wanting the mercy saying that I am your pure servant, Lord Chaitanya. I have forgotten. I have danced with you in Navadvip, in the spiritual world. But I have forgotten. And I have come here and I don't know what is it to dance with you on the streets of Navadvip, in the spiritual world. I have forgotten everything. I want to be able to reclaim my identity. I have amnesia. I want to be awoken from this amnesia. I want to be able to place you in the center. I want to be in the periphery so that I could serve and give pleasure to your senses. I want to awaken that because that's who I am. I am your servant. I have forgotten myself. So we are asking for mercy so that we could get rid of our various conditionings and be able to focus on the identity of being Krishna's servant. Anything that comes, be it auspicious or inauspicious, which is going to help us reclaim our original identity, is welcome. That is Krishna consciousness. That is spirituality. Spirituality focuses on the existence of the soul and pleasure of giving pleasure to the Lord. Simple. So in such circumstances, we are not seeking mental peace as a goal. Mental peace is not a goal of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the goal of Krishna consciousness. We want to be conscious of ourselves and conscious of Krishna. We want to be able to place Krishna, Sri Lord Chaitanya, in the center, be able to give pleasure to his senses. So we're going to tell him, bring upon us all those experiences. Make us your servant and give us mercy. That's the prayer of the Mahamantra. The Mahamantra is a mercy prayer, begging for mercy to be engaged in the eternal service. That which would allow us to engage in the eternal service without obstacles. That is the prayer. So when we ask for mercy, they bestow mercy. And what is that mercy? Mercy which comes to us is to give us the ability to be able to live the Shastra. I have been talking about experiences. You can read the Srimad Bhagavatam. How could you experience the Srimad Bhagavatam? That is mercy. So the more and more we read, and more there is an interest in developing and going deeper into Shastra, we have received mercy. I am giving you a blueprint. I am giving you the barometer for you to be able to say, are we receiving mercy? Are we not receiving mercy? Am I receiving Kripa? Not receiving Kripa? Do I have an interest to go deeper and deeper into the conclusions of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Do I have an interest to worship Krishna with my intelligence by picking up the Shastra and going deeper? Ask ourselves. Do I have an interest to chant? Am I waking up and chanting? Do I have an interest in regulating myself so that I could chant better? Do I have an interest? Or am I completely disinterested? You should ask yourself, because if you're not receiving that, then maybe there is that mercy is coming or not coming. You can ask, you can kind of check that. Then, am I eager to associate with devotees? What am I ready to give up to associate with devotees? We need devotee association. How can I get devotee association? What am I ready to give up? What am I ready to eagerly give up for me to get devotee association? Am I eager? Or am I entering into the Sangha where I'm looking at it and saying, this Sangha is problematic because there are people there who I don't get along with? So we can check to see if we are receiving mercy by seeing if we are eager to participate in devotee Sangha. Are we more and more and more eager? Because that Sangha is going to be the bedrock. It is going to be the actual pivotal point for us to move forward. Without Sangha, how do we get service? Without service, how do we get experiences? And without experiences, how do we put Krishna in the center? How do we realize who we are? We need experiences. Because more and more experiences would mean deeper and deeper faith. Deeper faith would mean more and more experiences. It happens. So, are we eager for living the Shastra? Are we eager for devotee association? Are we eager for chanting the holy names? Are we eager for service? How eager are we? Now this becomes a barometer for us to check to see if we are receiving mercy. Now if we are not receiving mercy, it means if these opportunities are very limited, what do I do? If these opportunities are very limited and I'm struggling, what do I do? There is something that I have to do so that I can get mercy, isn't it? So what do I do? Offer prayers. Pratana, which has been given by our acharyas, is a strategy. The more and more we offer prayers, the more and more would be the opportunity for us to be able to get the mercy of the acharyas. Everyone in our parampara, all the parampara acharyas, are available for us to be able to receive connections from them and to develop their connections and to receive mercy. How do we do that? We do that by basically reading the prayers of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He has written wonderful prayers of surrender. In his book Sharanagati, there are so many wonderful prayers. You can read the prayers of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and you should pray to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and you should request him that I would like to offer these prayers to Krishna in your mood. Because his mood is incomparable. Our mood may not be sincere. We might be saying, I can read a prayer, but I may not have the sincerity to offer that prayer to the Lord. I may not be sincere, because my desire for serving is not there. How do we move from that stage? So you offer prayers to the Acharya who has written the prayer and request him for mercy. Tell him, I would like to offer these prayers in the mood in which you have written it. In whatever mood you wrote it, I want to offer these prayers to the Lord. The Acharya will bestow his mercy. And then offer those prayers, read it out, memorize them. So pratana is a strategy for us to revive our propensity and possibilities of getting mercy. So first we check to see where we are, and then next step is to strategize to see what we could do to improve. Isn't it logical that you first check where you are and then you move on and do what is necessary? But first, there's one more factor which Srila Rupa Goswami talks about. Srila Rupa Goswami is very special. We are Rupanugas, we are followers of Rupa Goswami. There are 6 Goswamis, but he is the leader amongst all the Goswamis because he knew the heart of Lord Chaitanya. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitamena Bhutale. He knew the heart of Lord Chaitanya. He knew what Lord Chaitanya wants. And that is such a rare condition, to know the heart of Lord Chaitanya. So whatever instruction Srila Rupa Goswami gives, we accept it, we take it up with full faith, and we follow. Because he knew the heart of Lord Chaitanya. Right? So Srila Rupa Goswami's prayers, we can offer prayers to the Acharyas. That's where we were, right? We were offering prayers to the Acharyas, and we were wanting to get out of our obstacles, and we wanted to offer our prayers in the mood of the Acharyas. Right? Why did I speak of Srila Rupa Goswami? I got a little disconnected there. But to check. Okay, so now, I'm sorry, I mentioned Srila Rupa Goswami, but I guess I got a little distracted there. So, Srila Rupa Goswami mentions that there is a very important factor for us to be able to make progress in devotional service. And he says very clearly, one has to have laulyam. Laulyam in Sanskrit essentially means greed. If you're greedy, you're going to get, they say, right, the crying baby gets milk, right? So that same concept of wanting to be greedy to serve, greedy to connect to the divine couple, greedy for us to be able to chant, greedy for us to be able to do all those aspects. That greed allows us to experience and get more and more mercy. But this beauty is, this whole concept of laulyam, greed, is also phenomenal. It is phenomenal because souls that are born in traditions, karmically, which are not connected directly to the Vedic paradigm, if those souls are eager to know God beyond their calling or beyond what has been offered to them, Krishna reaches out to them. There are many Christian saints who were born in the Christian tradition which were not directly connected to the Vedic paradigm, but at the same time their greed to know God was so intense that Krishna made arrangements to reveal certain very highly treasured aspects of himself to these saints. So some of their teachings and some of their writings match some of the most confidential aspects of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So it tells us that if someone is born under circumstances where they are not entitled to know the most confidential aspects of God because of the circumstances and the environment they are in, what is available to them is quite limited. But the greed within the heart to know the Lord is so great that Krishna starts revealing some amazing aspects of his existence and confidential pastimes to them. So it's very fascinating to see this concept of laulyam going beyond just Krishna consciousness. It is applicable overall to any soul who wants to connect to the Lord. There are no barriers. If there is greed, Krishna will make the arrangements to reach out. There is this particular order, I don't remember the order, there's a monastic order in Greece, or was it Ukraine? I think it's Ukraine. In Ukraine, extremely strict monastic order. These are a group of monks, and these monks, they have this tradition where they will get into a cave, and in that cave, once they get in, it's almost like taking a vow. They will get into the cave and they will seal the cave. Other monks will be there inside. They will seal. They will not be able to step out for the rest of their life. They would just take up the beads, the chanting beads, and there are prayers which they call out for the names of the Lord. The food and whatever it is would be given to them because they have the ability to receive it. There is some kind of a window through which food is passed on so that they could survive. Water, food, okay. Illness or anything, there will be no question of medicine or anything. They suffer within chant. They will not come out. The cave is sealed. It used to be amazing, some miraculous it used to be, that they used to chant almost 24/7. They used to sit and chant the holy names of the Lord. And when they used to leave the body, right? They used to leave the body, and the leaving of the body used to be such that people who were there to pick up the body, they used to come after several days, and they used to still find the body extremely soft. Normally the body becomes, attains rigor mortis, it becomes stiff, extremely soft, pliable. because the body has been hearing the spiritual vibrations, and it has been spiritualized to such an extent that it does not decay easily. So very fascinating to see that even beyond our understanding of Krishna consciousness, right, even beyond our understanding of what we have been reading so far, you have other traditions where there has been real greed of wanting to know the Lord, and He has come forth. Fascinating to see how it is happening in other traditions as well. There are some Sufi saints who have written songs that have some very confidential realizations. Ultimately, Sufism is also like the devotional aspect of Islam, the devotional aspect of Islam. It is bhakti, the bhakti segment of Islam. They also have a lot of chanting, dancing, and so on and so forth. Their writings match, and there are some confidential aspects, some realizations which are quite deep, even in the Sufis in Islam, because now you have someone who is saying, I'm going to abandon all forms of stricture, I want to surrender to you. Krishna is coming forth even though they do not have the karmic circumstances to realize Him fully. He is coming forth and offering realizations to them even though they are born in a completely different tradition. This is the effect of laulyam. There is greed involved, Krishna comes forth. I've given this example before. There was one Mataji, one lady, one devotee, who came in 2004, and she was from Kazakhstan. And she came here with Bibi Govind Maharaj, and she is a Bharatanatyam dancer or one of those performers. I'm not sure which tradition, one of the classical Indian dancers. So she was coming in a troupe of devotees from Kazakhstan. Very unusual personality. Her father is a mullah, right, in a village. She and her mother are initiated. The father does not know that they are initiated. And they stay with their parents in the village. One day, they told their father that they are visiting a neighboring village, and they took a flight and went to Mayapur. They got initiated in Mayapur, they came back, and they are practicing Krishna consciousness. Can you imagine the pressure of living in those circumstances and adjusting to an environment which can be so inimical, but yet the greed of the soul was so great that they are ready to take chances to wanting to connect? They must be holding on to their beads close to their heart every day in gratitude while chanting, because they have to probably keep it under the dupatta. I don't know. Maybe they shouldn't see. Maybe they are holding beads in a different way and chanting. But that chanting is relishable because now you're really fighting for mercy, and mercy is being poured upon you. Now Krishna is looking at you and saying, you are so unfortunate to be in those circumstances, but yet this will not prevent me from connecting to you. Laulyam in action. Devotees in Russia in the early days when the communist regime was on, and Bhagavad Gita was banned. Srila Prabhupada just visited once. He visited once, and I think he was invited by the Indian consul in the embassy. He went to Moscow. He visited once, and at that time there was one person who was coming in touch with Srila Prabhupada. That person became instrumental because he received a copy of the Bhagavad Gita from Prabhupada. He took it up as a mission on his head. He used to type Bhagavad Gitas in Russian. And those typewritten copies used to be so valuable because they were not print copies that you pay off $10 and buy. These were typewritten, quite rare, and it's extremely, difficult to obtain. So they used to value these typewritten copies so much that they used to cherish each and every word. And devotees used to type and distribute Bhagavad Gita. Then they were persecuted. The persecution in the Ukraine and other places was so severe, so very severe, that they were put under interrogation for days, and the way they used to be interrogated was they used to be constantly given injections. These injections which used to make them speak, whatever, kind of to loosen them up. They used to be given injections which used to make them so dull, they used to go to bed, sleep. They'll again wake up, they'll be given injections. And for several years, they were in such situations were submitted to all kinds of torture just for distributing the books of the Lord. Just for typewriting and distributing the books of the Lord. Some of them were thrown in prison. Some of them were thrown in prison because they were distributing the books of the Lord. The communist regime thought that they were spies, they were this, they were that. They were thrown in prisons and they did not have beads. In a very cold prison in Russia, they used to receive black bread. They used to roll up black bread, harden it, and then make it into a mala. And that used to be their mala, and they used to chant the holy names on it. And they were very grateful they had that opportunity. That's Laulyam. Can you imagine the circumstances? Can you imagine where we are in terms of our ability to chant and what's been given to us? Can you imagine how pitiful it is that we have been given this opportunity and yet we don't take this seriously? It's pitiful. Krishna is probably crying that I have given so many opportunities. They're so fortunate. They have absolutely no restrictions. Being in America is much better than being in India. Because you can organize your life. There's a certain amount of time you will do certain things. You can manage it better than being in India, because in India you have many other distractions. So we have been given this opportunity to chant. We haven't even realized what's been given to us. That is most unfortunate. But there are those souls who have realized it, and the Laulyam has been so great, they are ready to pay for this with their lives. How eager must you be to serve that you don't mind getting killed for service? Can you imagine this? You get caught with a typewriter and a printed Bhagavad Gita in your hand. It's a death sentence. And you don't mind that. Right? Fascinating. Fascinating to see what Laulyam is. Fascinating to see what is possible in Krishna consciousness. What is possible in Krishna consciousness. It's amazing what devotees have done to push this movement forward. This movement of Lord Chaitanya. Spreading everything. Especially the Western devotees. They gave up their homes. They gave up everything practically. Practically they gave up everything to join the movement so that they could assist Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada was grateful. The gratitude of Srila Prabhupada was such that that gratitude is more than adequate. Krishna becomes obligated. Prabhupada becomes grateful, Krishna becomes obligated. Krishna becomes obligated. What do you need? Those devotees have earned the gratitude of Srila Prabhupada. He used to have tears in his eyes. He used to have tears in his eyes when he used to read about how people are taking chances to move this movement forward of Lord Chaitanya. This movement is so special because Lord Chaitanya said this. He said that my movement and my name would be spread in every town and village. He made this statement. What does the statement of Lord Chaitanya mean? It means that his Shakti is behind that statement. Do you understand? This is Krishna. This is Krishna making a statement where he is saying this is going to happen. What happens? The whole of existence has to fulfill that statement. So whoever takes up that statement on their back will receive Shakti, because that Shakti is contained in that statement. Do we understand this? Do we understand the import of Lord Chaitanya's statement? Lord Chaitanya's statement is that my name will spread in every town and village. Whoever takes up that statement saying that I am going to assist in spreading your name in every town and village will receive Shakti from that statement. Empowerment comes when we take on service after following the orders of the Guru. The Guru says chant 16 rounds. I don't have the capacity to chant 16 rounds, Gurudev. I'm a fool. I don't have the capacity. I don't have realization. But Guru is saying chant 16 rounds. Here are the beads. We take the beads. The Shakti to chant comes because we are following the orders. When the Guru is giving an order, there is Shakti and potency in the order. And that potency comes to one who takes up the order on their shoulder. Do we realize? So now Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, spread my mission. So Shakti comes to one who has taken up the mission on their back. Because Shakti is contained in that order. Empowerment comes and Shakti comes. That's how it works. So mercy is required and mercy is given. The barometer for realizing mercy is, are we interested? Are we eager to serve? Are we eager to associate? Are we eager to chant? Are we eager to live the Shastra? Experience the Shastra. Read the Shastra. Go deeper. That eagerness is going to be reflected and we will understand that mercy has been given. If it's not been given, rather it's been given, but we have neglected it, even though it was given, it's time for us to reclaim what was given by begging. That begging is pratna. That begging cannot be done by an insincere heart. One has to desire it. For desire to develop, we worship the acharyas who have written the prayer and then tell them, please allow me to speak the prayer on your behalf. I mean, on my in the mood in which you spoke it. That allows us to make immense progress. So there is pratna, there is service. So now this is the full circle, right, of Krishna consciousness, where one starts by getting experiences. It requires service and we make progress. Okay? So this is the plan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is the plan of Srila Rupa Goswami. Right? So now let us read 62. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaham sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kaman. I'm sorry, sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodo bijayate. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. So contemplating the objects of the senses, contemplation of the objects of the senses occurs because we are not inert. We are conscious beings. What our senses require are engagement. Engagement of the senses in the Lord's service would allow us to purify them and we would develop a higher taste. If you contemplate, you will develop attachment. When we develop attachment and those attachments do not get fulfilled, lust. There is frustration. And that frustration results in anger. Once there is anger, there is bewilderment of memory. There is loss of memory. And everything else is lost. Now let's read the next verse. Krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibhramaha smriti brahmsad buddhi nasho buddhi nashat pranashyati. From anger, complete delusion arises. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So, very clear cycle. Anger, delusion. Delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. When intelligence is lost, one falls down again in the material pool. If one does not remember, it's a great, great problem. And how does it occur? Krishna says in 15:15, memory and remembrance come from him. But how is he responsible for causing us to forget him? Is he interfering with Krishna consciousness? Is Krishna interfering with Krishna consciousness? So how is it happening that we are forgetting? Desires. We desire to forget and Krishna says, okay, go ahead, forget. Krishna is the granter of desires. You desire to forget, he will say, okay, here are the opportunities. forget me. You desire to remember, He will provide the opportunities. It's desire. How do you develop desires? How do you develop proper desires? By developing a higher taste. How do you develop a higher taste? You develop a higher taste by engaging our senses in the Lord's service. We do not withdraw our senses completely. We become discriminant in engaging them in His service. That is Krishna consciousness. The program in Krishna consciousness is not about withdrawal alone. Withdrawal alone is somewhat of a limited experience. You can withdraw, but withdrawal alone is a limited experience. We want engagement because we are not inert. When we engage our senses in the Lord's service, automatically we make progress. Automatically desires change because there are experiences. Because here now contemplation changes, right? Instead of contemplation on the object of the senses, we are trying to contemplate how to serve Krishna's senses. That contemplation also can lead to attachment. That contemplation can also lead to attachment. It works both ways. Attachment can develop when there's a lot of contemplation opportunities with Krishna's senses. I want to serve you in this way, that way, a lot of opportunity. The more and more we become eager, the more and more we have opportunities, automatically we develop attachment. And from that attachment, wonderful things start happening. Because our faith becomes deeper. More and more opportunities for service come because now we are attached. (64). What is the time? 9:40. I think I'm going to stop here. So let's quickly summarize these two verses. What we wanted to share was that normally a living entity is not inert. They are active, conscious beings. Since we are conscious beings, our senses need engagement. Our senses are constantly moving around trying to seek engagement. So what they do is they constantly contemplate on the objects of the senses. Because they are not inert, they are alive, they are conscious. Oh, can I do this, can I do this, can I do this? This contemplation goes on. So since they are not engaged in the Lord's service, this contemplation results in contemplating on material objects. This contemplation on material object basically develops desires deep within. Then these desires fructify, they become more stronger and they turn into lust, attachment and lust. And when that lust is not being satisfied, it results in anger. Then the cycle starts again and again. These are very deep samskaras. You know, some of these stains, for example, on a white piece of cloth, if you have a very dark stain, it's extremely difficult to get that stain away. Very difficult, right? Sometimes, like a blot. Similarly, stains in the chitta that are made by the mode of ignorance are very difficult to clean up. Anger, very difficult to remove because these are stains. Very difficult to remove those stains because they are made by the mode of ignorance. So then again and again, that person now has a certain blueprint in their heart and they start acting according to it. It's like someone has gone and they have robbed something once. They have been stealing something, they stole once. Once they steal it, that leaves a samskara in their heart. Which means they're going to steal again because it's now been used to it. So similarly, contemplation leads to habits. Contemplation leads to attachment. Contemplation leads to attachment to lust, which doesn't get satisfied. But the same thing can be reversed. The senses need engagement. Instead of focusing on the objects of the senses, you start focusing on the senses of the Lord and you develop attachment. That is the program of Krishna consciousness, very natural. Knowing that we have a propensity to get attached to Krishna. The mind has a propensity to engage in acceptance, rejection, sankalpa, vikalpa. Accept things that are favorable, reject things that are unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. Srila Rupa Goswami's teachings are very strategic, very clear, understanding what the challenges are, what do we need to do. We have a problem with our senses, how can we handle them? Not by restraining, but by engaging. The more and more we engage, the more and more our attachment develops. More and more our experiences come. The more experiences come, our chitta is now used to serving. right? As much as someone engages in sinful activity, there are impressions. They engage in more sinful activity. Sin leads to sin. Have you heard this? How does sin lead to sin? Because you sin once, there's an impression on the chitta. That particular impression forces one to sin again and again and again. More and more impressions. Similarly, devotional service. You serve once, twice, thrice. You serve more, different ways, powerfully, sincerely. It is going to create impressions in the chitta. It is going to create impressions. Those impressions, what is it going to do? It's going to remind us of being servants of the Lord. It's going to help us. That's the beauty and the power of devotional service. That is the recommendation of the Shastras. Param drishtva nivartate. Because your senses have the capacity to get attracted to Krishna. So if you visit our temples, there is such elaborate, wonderful deity worship. Get attracted to Krishna. His form is so beautiful. Right? The service is so wonderful. Get attracted. That's the opportunity. Okay? I'm going to stop right here. So, any questions? Yeah, who do we have? Oh, very nice. Is there any question? Anyone? Charity falls in the category of the mode of goodness. Devotional service is transcendental to the mode of goodness. Charity is not connected to Krishna. It is in the mode of goodness. Surely, charity is a wonderful thing. It softens the heart. Charity is to be encouraged. But it is in the mode of goodness. We are interested in going above the mode of goodness. We are not interested in being in the mode of goodness. So, where is the difference? In charity, Krishna is not directly involved. We are wanting to involve Krishna in everything. Charity helps us become selfless, but becoming selfless alone is not so wonderful if selflessness does not lead us to engage our senses in the Lord's service. Okay, the question which Ajay Prabhu is asking is, will devotional or will donations in the temple, where some visitors to the temple might come and they might say that, you know, all we are going to do is donate $1,000, all we are going to do is donate $500, is that considered to be devotional service? First of all, we have to acknowledge that it is wonderful that someone is able to make some sacrifice towards the Lord. So we don't want to put that down. However, this is not classified into devotional service by Srila Rupa Goswami. Because our senses have to be engaged. Our senses are not engaged here if we just go and then offer $1,000. Now, I offer $1,000 donation, I sponsor a feast, and then I take the serving pot and serve all the Vaishnavas. That becomes devotional service. Yes, you got to realize that Krishna can arrange for resources. Krishna doesn't need Krishna consciousness, we do. Right? Yeah, so similarly, there are crores and millions of Lakshmis serving Krishna. He doesn't need money, but we need to give our money to him so that we at least understand that the results of our actions are being surrendered to his lotus feet. We need that, he doesn't. So what is the way for us to move forward? It is not so much just making donations. We would make a lot of progress by engaging our senses in the service of the Lord. Extremely important, because that would help us develop Agyata Sukriti. You have the opportunity to come to the temple, You have the opportunity to make a donation, and then you are saying, Prabhu, let me help. Finished. Devotional service starts from that point on. So it's important to engage our senses in the service of the Lord. Flow of desires is like a river. The more and more we get frustrated, one of the primary qualifications for taking up wonderful spiritual service is material frustration. So it's wonderful to have the flow of desires come and get frustrated. Ask for frustration and automatically those desires will stop. But the more important aspect of it is that we engage our senses. As our senses become more and more engaged, and we develop the ability to serve, automatically there are samskaras created in our chitta, in our consciousness. And these samskaras are such that they propel us towards more and more service. So that would allow us to cleanse our desires. Desires are nothing but reactions from our past. So desires come into our heart because they are reactions from the past. Right? So these reactions from the past are such that they have to be cleared. That is the reason why when we take up devotional service, our anxiety level goes down, because devotional service allows us to get rid of sinful reactions, and lesser sinful reactions means lesser desires to fulfill. Lesser desires to fulfill means lesser frustration. Automatically anxiety level goes down. It's a good prescription. So what do we do to stop the incessant flow? Chant. There's only one medicine, Krishna Prasadam and chanting. Yes. So it's a big question, or rather it was a longer question. So the question is, how do we understand if we are getting mercy, if our circumstances are such that we want to chant but we cannot chant because there are circumstances which are preventing us from chanting. It could be that we are bodily tired, it could be this, it could be that. I'm going to share a story of a mother, a devotee, Mother Hladini. She was a Prabhupada disciple who used to serve in New Vrindavan during the early years. Extremely elevated soul, very elevated soul. And her service was so intense that she was a pujari for Jagannath in New Vrindavan. And Jagannath had a separate temple those days. There was a different temple for Jagannath, different temple for Radha Vrindavan Chandra. In New Vrindavan, there were different places of worship. Okay, they had multiple places. So she was taking care of Jagannath. Her service used to start at 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:30. So she had to get out of bed. She used to jump. And once she jumps out of bed, she used to, sometimes it used to be such that, you just go have a shower, and the shower was ice water at 3 o'clock in the morning, those days, no hot water. And then you immediately come and engage in service. And what was the service that she used to do? She has to make offerings for Jagannath. And these offerings and the service and the intensity used to be so high on certain days that it used to be practically difficult for her to read or chant. Because out of 24 hours, you're literally working 22 hours in serving. I'm just giving an example. So what she used to do was, her determination was so strong to complete the rounds and to complete her vow, was she used to hang the beads in front of her. And while doing other service, she used to chant and count, hanging the beads in front of her. Can you imagine the determination? She used to be so focused, she used to hang the beads in front of her in whatever she is doing, and used to count and then chant and then do it. She used to keep the Chaitanya Chaitamrita open in one spot in the kitchen. Bhagavad Gita in another spot. Srimad Bhagavatam, one canto or the other in one spot. So every time the milk is boiling and she has 10 minutes, she will be flipping through pages. Wherever she is, she will flip through pages here and there. Okay? Now, this is called laulyam because Now a person understands that time belongs to Krishna and my time will be used fruitfully. So we really don't have an opportunity to complain that there are circumstances which are preventing us from chanting. The whole opportunity is for us to be able to transcend those circumstances. That is why devotional service is transcendental, where you have certain circumstances and you want to transcend those. Right? My spiritual master, while he was traveling in the communist Europe in early 70s, while communist Europe was still completely communist, the KGB and all kinds of, the secret service police used to be after him, and he used to get himself locked up in the toilet of the train. And he used to lock himself up, and people used to keep banging the door, open the door, we want to come in. And he never used to open, never used to acknowledge, and they used to think it was broken and they used to move off. He used to sit and chant inside the toilet. Now one would say, how is it possible? How could you spend 8 hours in the toilet chanting? He used to do it. 8 hours in the toilet chanting. Because the train journey, the entire train journey, he had to be in it, otherwise he would be caught. And all he was trying to do, what was he trying to do? Distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. This is real service. In fact, devotees have made a mention of this. Even for $1 million a month, they would not do things which they did for Prabhupada for free. That is spirituality. That is spiritual. What they did for Srila Prabhupada for free, they wouldn't do it for $1 million a month salary. You cannot. That's the amazing aspect of what Srila Prabhupada was. So to answer your question, let's understand this. Matter cannot interfere with spirit. Matter cannot interfere with spirit. You understand? How can matter stop spirit? Your circumstances are material. How can it stop spiritual life? It cannot. Can you understand this? It is logical. Can spirit be stopped by matter? It's inferior. Matter is inferior. How do you think that matter can pose a real obstacle to spirit? It cannot. Anything else? Yeah. How is that possible? Praying to Krishna, does it fall in the mode of goodness? It's devotional service. It's transcendental devotional service. Well, that's where the qualifier is. Irrespective of what we're praying for, it's all about what we're praying for, yes. So, yeah, the objective is what is defined here, very clearly. It is not the action, it is the consciousness. What do you have in mind while you're asking? When I was asking you to pray, when I was saying offer pratna, I was asking you to pray so that beg for the obstacles to devotional service to be removed. The other prayer, I don't need to preach. Everybody does it. I don't need to come here every Friday to tell you or teach you how to pray to Krishna to give that, give this. That training is already there. That samskara is a part of being born in India, or being born anywhere. We start at the age of 4, right? How do we pass this exam? How do we pass that exam? What do? We know all the strategies. Does that answer your question? Yes, that helps. If you so desire Krishna, ensure that this is fine. We can make that statement, if you so desire. So you're qualifying it now. Krishna knows what we need. We only know what we want. Unfortunately, most of us do not want devotional service. That's the problem. So it's better to say, Krishna, give me what I need, not what I want. Someone had a question? The more material desires we have, the farther we get from Krishna. Yes, because now we are saying, Krishna, I don't want to give pleasure to your senses. I want to give pleasure to my senses, which is focusing on the body, focusing on your separated energies. I want to enjoy. And I want to enjoy with the separated energies of the Lord. I don't want to give pleasure to his senses. So, yeah. Mother Hadini. Yes, yes, you have seen the picture. Because she is very inspirational to me, Mother Hadini, and as a result of which I do keep her picture next to my Guru Maharaj, because she inspired, so many wonderful things. And there are other reasons. She's a devotee of Jagannath, so there is some connections there. We worship Jagannath. Anything else? So we'll end here. Srila Prabhupada ki